The first thing I noticed was the darkness. The second was the warmth of her hands tying a soft scarf around my eyes. And the third was the way my heart suddenly started beating like it already knew something my mind was refusing to admit. My best friend, Emma, had always been unpredictable. She could turn an ordinary Tuesday into an adventure, a quiet dinner into a 3-hour conversation, and a simple joke into something we'd remember for years. But that night, standing in her small apartment kitchen with my eyes covered and her fingers gently adjusting the blindfold, I had no idea that one harmless taste test was about to change the friendship I'd spent 7 years protecting. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the courage to tell someone how much they mean to you before it's too late, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear that message, and subscribe to the channel for more heart-touching stories. It had been raining all afternoon, the kind of steady summer rain that made the city look softer through the windows. Emma had invited me over because she was testing recipes for a small bakery she dreamed of opening someday. I had heard that dream 100 times. She wanted a place with warm wooden tables, handwritten menus, cinnamon in the air, and a little corner where people could sit when life felt too heavy to go home. I had always believed in her dream more than I believed in my own. Maybe because Emma had been there during the hardest years of my life. When my father died, she was the person who sat beside me at the funeral and never once told me to be strong. When I lost my job, she brought groceries to my apartment and pretended she'd bought too much. When I stopped answering messages because I couldn't bear explaining why I was struggling, she simply showed up at my door. She had never asked me for anything. And perhaps that was why I had spent years carefully ignoring the one thing I wanted from her. I loved her. Not in the safe, comfortable way best friends were supposed to love each other. Not in the way people casually said they loved their favorite person or their childhood companion. I loved her in the frightening way that made ordinary moments feel dangerous. I loved the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous. I loved the tiny crease that appeared between her eyebrows when she concentrated. I loved how she laughed at her own jokes before anyone else had time to understand them. But I had never told her. Because losing Emma as a friend felt more terrifying than living without her as anything else. That evening, she had prepared several tiny bowls filled with different desserts. She told me she wanted to test whether I could identify the flavors without seeing them. I laughed when she announced that she was taking the competition seriously, because Emma could make even a spoonful of pudding sound like an Olympic event. Then she blindfolded me. I heard her footsteps moving around the kitchen. A spoon scraped gently against a bowl. Something smelled like strawberries, then chocolate, then something warm and sweet that reminded me of childhood. She placed the first bite on my tongue. I guessed vanilla. She laughed. The second tasted like chocolate and orange. I guessed correctly. The third was creamy, sweet, and slightly salty. I couldn't identify it, and Emma teased me mercilessly. I could hear the smile in her voice. Then everything became quiet. I felt her move closer. My shoulders stiffened. There was a pause so long that I could hear the rain tapping against the window. Then I felt her fingers lightly touch my cheek. Before I could understand what was happening, she kissed me. It wasn't dramatic. There was no music, no grand gesture, no movie-perfect moment. It was soft, hesitant, almost questioning. But it completely shattered the world I had built around her. She pulled away, and for a second neither of us moved. Then she whispered for me to guess the flavor. I stood there behind the blindfold, unable to breathe properly. I knew immediately. It wasn't strawberry. It wasn't chocolate. It wasn't anything she'd baked. It was Emma. And somehow, that was the most terrifying answer of all. I slowly removed the blindfold. She was standing only a few feet away, staring at the floor. Her confidence was gone. The playful smile had disappeared. For the first time in 7 years, Emma looked genuinely afraid of me. I wanted to say something beautiful. Instead, I asked why. Her eyes lifted to mine. She told me that she had been trying to figure out for months whether what she felt was friendship or something more. She said she had watched me walk away from every relationship because I always seemed emotionally somewhere else. She said she'd noticed the way I looked at her when I thought she wasn't paying attention. And then she admitted something that made my chest ache. She had been afraid too. Afraid that if she said what she felt and I didn't feel the same, she would lose the one person who had never left. I wanted to tell her she was wrong. I wanted to tell her that I had loved her for years. But fear is strange. Even when the truth is standing directly in front of you, fear can make you silent. So I told her I needed time. The moment those words left my mouth, I saw the disappointment in her eyes. She nodded as though she understood. But she didn't. The next morning, everything changed. Our messages became shorter. Our usual morning jokes disappeared. The casual invitations stopped. There was no more asking if I wanted coffee. No more sending pictures of ridiculous things she saw during the day. Emma had not disappeared from my life. She had simply stopped reaching for me. And I realized something painful. Sometimes you don't understand how much someone has become part of your life until they stop filling the spaces between your ordinary moments. Weeks passed. I tried dating other people. I tried convincing myself that the kiss had only been an emotional mistake. I told myself that our friendship was too valuable to risk. But every time something funny happened, Emma was the person I wanted to tell. Every time I passed the bakery where she had once said she wanted to open her dream shop, I thought of her. And every night, before sleeping, I remembered the question she had whispered through the darkness. Guess the flavor. One evening, I received a message from her. She told me she had found a small storefront and was finally going to try opening the bakery. I stared at the message for several minutes. Then I drove there. The shop was still empty. There were no tables, no signs, no decorations. Just bare walls, dusty windows, and Emma standing in the middle of the room holding a cardboard box. She looked surprised to see me. I walked toward her. For once, I didn't prepare a speech. I didn't rehearse the perfect words. I didn't protect myself with jokes. I simply told her the truth. I told her that I had loved her long before that kiss. I told her I had been afraid because losing her seemed unbearable. I told her that I had confused safety with happiness. And I told her that when she kissed me, the hardest part wasn't realizing I loved her. The hardest part was realizing how long I had been pretending I didn't. Emma started crying. So did I. We stood in that unfinished bakery, surrounded by cardboard boxes and dust, holding each other like two people who had spent years standing on opposite sides of the same door. She laughed through her tears and reminded me that I still hadn't guessed the flavor. I smiled. Then I told her the truth. It was love. It had always been love. Months later, Emma opened the bakery. The sign above the door carried the name she'd dreamed about for years. The tables were made of warm wood. Cinnamon filled the air. There was a little corner by the window where people could sit quietly when they needed somewhere safe. And on the wall behind the counter was a small handwritten sentence. Sometimes the sweetest things in life are the ones we're most afraid to taste. I never told her that the blindfolded kiss had changed my life because it was romantic. I told her it changed my life because it forced me to stop hiding. We had spent years protecting our friendship from the possibility of love. In the end, it was honesty that protected us. Because sometimes the person you're afraid to lose is the very person you've been waiting your whole life to find. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who might need the courage to speak their truth, and subscribe for more stories about kindness, second chances, and the unexpected ways love finds us. And before the story ends, comment, "I choose courage," if you believe that sometimes the greatest risk is staying silent when your heart already knows the answer. Because Emma taught me something I'll never forget. You can spend years being afraid of losing someone. But sometimes, the only way to truly keep them is to finally let them know how much they mean to you. And sometimes, love doesn't arrive with fireworks. Sometimes, it arrives quietly. In a kitchen. Behind a blindfold. With a whispered question. Guess the flavor. And the courage to finally answer.